One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet whom millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
And so it is not helpful for us to have ICE agents unlawfully just carrying out these ridiculous raids that are not resulting in any sort of arrests, that have no explanation of why they are there. They are disturbing peaceful communities that are just trying to live out their lives. And I join our mayor and our senator in asking them to get the heck out of our city.
Except he didn't say get the heck out of our city. He said get the F out of our city. Which, by the way, it ain't your city either. You ain't from here. And we all know that story. So, welcome to the evening edition of the show. I've got a whole bunch of stuff to share with you. A boatload of stuff. Things are popping off. I think the Insurrection Act is a short period away. I'm going to start with a press conference that Kristi Noem gave. In addition, I have some footage. Let me see, which monitor am I going to go to? I'm going to go to this monitor. Check out, this is what's going on in Minneapolis right now. All of that. They are doing crazy stuff. It looks like a crowd of probably 10,000 people. That's the best camera angle we have right now in terms of what they're doing. They're burning stuff. Earlier, when it was a little bit lighter, I saw some Iranian flags. These people just have so many mixed up priorities because they don't care. All it is about turmoil and chaos. They keep accusing ICE and the Trump administration of chaos, but it's them who do the chaos. So we're going to do Kristi Noem's interview first before I get too far into the show. But before I get too far into the show, I also want to talk to you guys about tonight's sponsor. Let me just get it out of the way right now so we can go ahead and get into everything. I'm sorry, I'm trying to adjust a couple things that weren't right in the way it looked, and now we're good. We're going to go. All right, here we go. You guys have now, by now, have heard of Bearskin Hoodie. Matter of fact, if you're in Minnesota and you got to stand watch over your property, this might be the hoodie you want to watch. This might be the hoodie you want to put on tonight while you're trying to watch out for the hoodlums. Well, the smart people are grabbing theirs right now because when it's already freezing, you want gear that actually keeps you warm. Bearskin is running a 60% off deal right now. And I got to tell you, this is an amazing hoodie. So you can finally upgrade that sad excuse for a winter hoodie you've been suffering in. These hoodies are built for serious cold weather. It's got 340 GSM of bearskin fleece, 10 legit pockets. And like I've shown you, there's pockets on top of pockets, pockets everywhere. It's a great, great hoodie. It's got a tight, muscular fit. Even at my size, this thing fits nice and tight. It's got a heavy storm rain jacket that turns into full waterproof armor. Whether you're into hiking, hunting, traveling, picking off, protesters, or just hate being cold, this is the last hoodie you will ever need. You'll get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery. You'll get SV texting you, and you're finally kitted out properly for winter. That's a win-win. So do yourself a favor. Text the word Barry, like it says on the screen, to 36912 to lock in your 60% off. Again, text it to Barry 36912, and you'll get a link sent straight to your phone so you can check it, and check it out later if you're busy, but you'll still get your 60% off. And when you shop with Bearskin, you're not just getting killer gear, you're also supporting the fallen outdoors and the Hope for the Warriors veterans programs. So don't wait till you're freezing. Don't wait until you're stuck out in the cold and you've got protesters climbing the fence. Do something now. Get a Bearskin now while it's 60% off. Text Barry to 36912. All right, so let's go ahead and run the Kristi Noem interview first so you guys can take a listen to how she's all over the country today. She was in Texas, and I guess now she's in Minnesota, and I saw Tricia McLaughlin in the background as well. So let's listen into what Kristi had to say.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation it was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow. Law enforcement were attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents, an act of domestic terrorism. The ICE officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues. He was treated at a local hospital, has been released, and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June. He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists, and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals. Since Governor Walz has been in charge of Minnesota, we have seen homicides go up by over 50%. That's also during Mayor Frye's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis. He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes. Because Governor Walz and Mayor Frye refuse to protect Minnesotans and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals to damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to proliferate drugs, and to steal American taxpayers' dollars. This state has faced unprecedented immigration fraud. It's seen unprecedented benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens and those vulnerable citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This city has burned before, and your mayor and your governor let it happen. President Trump is not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers, known and suspected terrorists, child pedophiles, and other brutal criminals that were protected here in this city. We should all work together to protect our citizens. We should all protect the men and the women and the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota, and live throughout this entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Secretary, no, Mayor Frye called the claim for self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught.
If you didn't hear the question was Mayor Frye today at his press conference said that, quote, the narrative was garbage. It was BS. She didn't try to run him over. And that's what the question was.
To do in that situation and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
Secretary, can you expand too on the agent's injuries? The president said that he's lucky to be alive.
The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with his family.
Can you clarify whether he was hit before or after the windshield was fired?
I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate.
Secretary, no, has the agent been relieved of their duties, or can you give us any other?
No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer-involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure that investigators are handling the decisions.
Secretary, have ICE operations paused because of what happened today?
No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous criminals off of the streets of Minneapolis.
Can you give us any insight into your conversation with the governor?
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here, and he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement with law enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
Secretary, will
Over here.
do you stand behind the use of force, and will any of those use of force guidelines be altered or changed in the future?
You know, it's clearly established law that a vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon. So I do believe that this officer used his training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
So just to be clear, did the shooting happen before or after the vehicle hit the officer?
I know you keep asking that, but that doesn't mean that the FBI is going to give you an answer today. There will be an investigation. We want to make sure that it's factual. What I would ask is that as we go forward from here today, that we all remember that our job is to have peaceful discussions. I'd encourage our local law enforcement and state law enforcement to work with us. We are going to continue to operate here in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota to make sure we're going after dangerous criminals. One of the key focuses that we've had here is a focus on individuals who are sexual predators and are involved in child exploitation. When I was just here yesterday, we arrested individuals who were charged with criminal assault and sexual assault and people that exploited children. Why would you want to keep them on your streets? President Trump has promised to go after the worst of the worst, and that's exactly what we're doing in Minneapolis. By not working with us, Governor Walz and Mayor Frey are putting those criminals and prioritizing them over our children and our grandchildren. And that's simply not true. He said that to me on the phone, too, so I'll get him the documentation that he needs so that he knows that we would love to coordinate with him. He doesn't give us access to any information on criminals, let us know who he's detained, doesn't honor our detainers, and has individuals and criminals in his jurisdiction that he won't turn over us today, too. Yes.
You mentioned that the officer involved today was once before raped by a vehicle. Can you explain the difference between that instance and today? Was a firearm discharged then? If not, what was the difference?
I won't speak to that case right now, but we can get you the details and the information on that. But the facts of the matter is he's an experienced officer. He's been in situations like this before, and he certainly has been out there and followed his training today.
Given the threat of vehicle encounters, are you going to change the way police?
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons.
Are you going to change the
This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better. That hasn't been a part of the discussion. I know Governor Walz mentioned some of that earlier in his press conference, but we've got law enforcement officers here that will continue to work, and we're hopeful that the public recognizes that the work that we do every day makes America safe again. With that, we had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene.
Was it a particular home or business in that intersection?
I won't speck to that.
Were they on a crime that person maybe committed that you were going after? You mentioned sexual prejudice. Well, body camera footage.
I will let the FBI decide.
Were they on target today when they were in that neighborhood?
They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation, had just completed one. Well, thank you. What's that? I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using. But remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those all work with us every day in a task force model, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have the state police, and we'd also love to have the Minneapolis police chief and his team be alongside of us while we're out there doing those enforcement operations. With that, we'll get you more information as it is revealed, but thank you and everybody. Let's work together to make sure that we can continue to help the city be safer, get more criminals off the streets, and ensure that our public has the opportunity to pursue the American dream in a city they can be proud of. Thank you.
But, you know, when you think about it, we have two different directions. What she just said is not what the left wants. They don't want people pursuing the, quote, American dream. For them, this is their religion. You're looking at their religion. They come together specifically for these kinds of moments. The woman, the now deceased woman, she wasn't just some ordinary drive-by, person who got caught in the traffic. Nope. The information is coming out that this was a very experienced protester, agitator, combatant, if you want to say. This just wasn't just somebody hanging out on a Wednesday afternoon in Minneapolis. There's video. I couldn't confirm it, so I didn't show it, but there's actually video out there where somebody who knows her was talking to somebody else and said she's great. She knows how to disrupt traffic. She knows she's been doing her job for quite some time. She knows what she's doing when she's out there. She's from Colorado. The plates, I believe, on the vehicle were from Missouri. She now is observing in Minnesota. None of this makes sense as they start digging into who she was. These people are trained. They are 100% operatives. Nobody just happens to do that to a law enforcement officer. I heard one of the nuts this morning or this afternoon was saying, she didn't have to die. Well, she didn't have to try to run over the cop. I'm pretty sure most of us were in that situation and somebody's facing us with a gun, we're probably going to raise our hands and acquiesce. These people live for this crap. These people, this is their religion. That's what they want. I mean, I don't know what the temperature in Minneapolis is right now. Maybe SV can post that. I'd love to know what the temperature is in Minneapolis, but there's probably 10,000 plus people standing out in the cold. For what? Why are they standing out in the cold? What are they hoping to see happen? All those people are already in on it. They're part of the operation. They're not there to convince anybody else. They're there to acquiesce and not acquiesce, but coalesce and come together and show their unity. And I'm going to show you some things tonight that's going to show you this is okay. SV says it's 35 degrees, probably with the wind chill, probably about 30 in snow. Who the hell wants to be out there just standing around singing Kumbaya? So what's going to happen next? That all depends on these people. It all depends on what happens right there. This is their first night after it's happened, and they're all sitting there congregating, and I'm sure there's more on the way. What happens next is dependent upon what they do. Do you think it's over? No, it's not over. It's definitely not over. So everything that happens from here on out is going to be dependent upon what those knuckleheads do, whether or not Tim Walz can go ahead and keep them under wraps, which doesn't sound like that's what he wants to do. It doesn't sound like Ilhan Omar wants them. It doesn't sound like any Democrat wants people to just be quiet. While I was watching some of this insanity, Tim Walz was giving his speech or his press conference, and Fox had a split screen. And he brought up some other guy who is the Minister of National Guard for Minnesota or whatever. And he's like, you can protest. We encourage you to protest. We want you to get your asses out there, but don't impede traffic. And on the split screen, they were impeding traffic. They wouldn't let people drive down the road. While he was saying it, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're not listening. And I'm going to show you some other stuff that's quite disheartening. But before I do that, I want to go back and give you some information that, I talked about it last week. And I just want to bring your attention to it again so that you have it fresh in your mind. And that is, what is the governmental definition of an insurrection? Not something you find on Twitter or X. What is the actual code for an insurrection? And that would be 18 U.S. Code 2383. It's a very simple definition, basically one sentence. So read it along with me, digest it, and as you're looking at it, see if what you're seeing could qualify. Whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engages in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort to, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 10 years or both, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. I show that to you because I want you to know the actual statute and the broad discretion that this statute allows President Trump. It doesn't say you have to do this, do that, or do the other thing. It says if you incite, engage, that's all you have to do. So everything that happens from what President Trump may do is going to be completely dependent upon what these nuts do. And right now, they don't look like they're ready to shut up and stop. I think it's a very short jump to inciting, engaging in any rebellion against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof. That's it. And so President Trump came out and he spoke about it. He made a post on Truth Social, and let me bring that post up. All right, here's President Trump's response. I have just viewed the clip of the event which took place in Minneapolis. It is a horrible thing to watch. The woman screaming was obviously a professional agitator, and the woman driving the car was very disorderly, obstructing, and resisting, who then violently, willfully, and viciously ran over the ICE officer, who seems to have shot her in self-defense. Based on the attached clip, and he put a clip of it on his post, it is hard to believe he is even alive, but is now recovering in the hospital, and as Christie said, has been released. The situation is being studied in its entirety, but the reason these incidents are happening is because the radical left is threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. They're just trying to do the job of making America safe. We need to stand by and protect our law enforcement from this radical left movement of violence and hate. Pretty simple statement, which I'm pretty sure what he's looking at is, give me a reason. Give me a reason. Give me the opportunity. And guess who else noticed that as well? Tim Walz. Tim Walz talked about it, just the same thing. All right, so let me get into some information I wanted to show you in regards to what happened this afternoon and how things are becoming somewhat insurrection-y.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. To be clear, there's no way for us to know whether they were actually criminals or not. It's not hyperbole to say we're not far from a world where anyone could get that knock at a door. And there's no guarantee you'd get your day in court or that you'd ever make it home alive from whatever corner of the world they stick you in. Now, if Trump and his folks want to come for Minnesotans, we need to make sure that there's a firewall that they have to come through before they get to them.
Who's the firewall? Who's the firewall for the Gestapo? As disgusting as that sounds, that was in May or March. It must have been May because commencement time. So it's May 2025 as he's giving a commencement address and he's indoctrinating more and more left idiots, telling people they're just going to get snapped off the street and we got to build a firewall. Well, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps this is what he was talking about. Maybe perhaps that is the firewall. And now it's time to activate these orcs. It's insane. Absolutely insane. But it gets worse.
I want Minnesotans to hear this from me. The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time. We have been warning for weeks that the Trump administration's dangerous, sensationalized operations are a threat to our public safety, that someone was going to get hurt.
No, you went further than that. You said the Gestapo was going to cause the people to get hurt. You didn't say anything about people driving cars into agents. You've been trying to gin this up the entire time. And I watched his whole 30 or 40 minute press conference, so you don't have to. And I was amazed how many times he brought up protest. It's synonymous with the Democrat Party at this point. Why? Because like yesterday's video, they've got nothing. And so they go for the most common denominator, which is dealing with these mental midgets, and they encourage them to get out there and cause problems. As of right now, this crowd is growing in a 35-degree weather, but they're not doing anything. And more than likely, they're not doing anything because there's nothing they can do. It's when they start moving when the problem begins. They're not going to do this in their own backyard. They're going to do something where they can motivate. And all the different radical commie soldiers are chipping in. Even Mandami, who you got nothing to do with this. He has to say something. I won't even share his stuff anymore when he talks about national stuff because it's none of his business. But listen to what Timmy says.
Yesterday, I said exactly that. What we're seeing is the consequences of governance designed to generate fear, headlines, and conflict. It's governing by reality TV. And
I can't take this guy seriously when literally a couple hours after a woman gets shot in the head 3 times, you're out there poking at Donald Trump talking about reality TV. This was today, right after she had been killed, he came out. And instead of saying, hey, dear Minnesota, we're going to try and work this out with the federal government. We're going to try and make this better, a smoother transition. If you're not supposed to be here, if you are a newcomer and you don't supposed to be in Minnesota, maybe now might be the time to, ixnay. Just wants to take digs at Trump.
Today, that recklessness cost someone their life. In order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard, we have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community. They're business owners. They're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. Well, I said this.
What national political fight is he referring to? How did he just say that he's getting his our National Guard together to do some sort of political national fight. That's not what the National Guard is there for. How is he going to administrate that? What kind of, unlawful orders are they going to give? The kind of unlawful orders when they say stuff and you can't really do it. What if the president comes in and says, I need the National Guard? What are you going to do? But it gets better.
Yesterday, we've never been at war with our federal government.
A lot of people picked up on that. A lot of people picked up on the fact that, we haven't been here before. We weren't at war with the federal government before. Oh, seriously? So now you're at war with the federal government? Is that what you're saying? Did you really just say that? It came out of his mouth. It struck me as soon as I heard it.
I think in this case that the National Guard is their main mission. They have a dual mission. There's Minnesotans, don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act. Do not.
It's on the top of his mind. As the governor of the state, literally an hour or two after that young woman went to her demise for being stupid, for following people like him, for doing stupid acts like trying to drive a car at a law enforcement officer, he now knows that there's a chance if we don't do something and fix this, but don't, go ahead and protest, but don't, whatever you do, don't provoke him. Whatever you do, don't provoke him. Don't give him the reason. Which means it's on his mind. Which means other Democrats have talked about it. They're terrified that Trump is going to pull that trigger, metaphorically speaking. They know what's coming. You know what's coming. It's just a matter of, is it now or are they going to wait? I mean, as I look at the screen and see all these people there and helicopters flying over, they're being watched. People are waiting to see, what are you going to do? And he's out there telling them, don't do it. Please don't do it. Now you want to tell them that? Too late.
Not allow them to declare martial law. Do not allow them to lie about the security and the decency of this state. And let's let this investigation play itself out. Let's make sure we protect our neighbors. I encourage you to use your First Amendment rights and all of your constitutional rights, but do so in a peaceful manner. We'll gather back with you as soon as we gather more information that needs to be put out. But again, stay safe.
Yeah, but again, stay safe. Don't get yourselves in trouble. Please don't give him the reason to bring in the Insurrection Act and bring the military in here. So you guys want to get together out there and have a candlelight, vigil, all 10,000 of you in the dark, huddling, freezing. By all means, go ahead, have it. Don't start trekking down Main Street. Don't start going into different neighborhoods and looking to burn stuff. That whole George Floyd thing ain't happening again. He knows it. He would never have brought it up if he didn't feel it himself.
Okay, it looks like they are throwing snowballs as the officers are leaving. So again, I believe it was a state patrol, and we did see some MPD officers who were leaving that scene. Hennepin County telling us that their sheriff's deputies have not been on that scene, but it looks like as officers are leaving the scene, just having some protesters or bystanders, agitators throwing some snowballs at them as they leave. We saw this earlier.
We did.
Well.
Yep. We
So somebody gave the order, probably Mayor Fry, maybe that cuck of a mayor, told everybody to pull out. Leave. Don't even try to arrest anybody. They won. Wave the white flag. Pull out. Let's go. Let's get out of here. Let's give this crazy mob. And as you're sitting here, let's give this mob the win. We'll do anything so as that, we don't get in front of these people who we're cultivating. Why would you give up? Why wouldn't you do your damn job? Why do you let it get to a point where they turn around? These people aren't even feds. This is Minnesota or Minneapolis police, and they're letting them turn on them. I think right now, Timmy Waltz realizes they don't care who's got the badge. If you have a badge, you're the enemy, period. These guys weren't the ones taking newcomers out of buildings. And now you've basically turned it into something out of a movie. The mob is coming for them.
This exact thing earlier, and this was targeted toward ICE agents at that particular time. But now, as you mentioned, this is MPD, BCA was on scene, the sheriff's department as well. And as this street is opening up here, you can see a lot of these protesters, these people in the community responding to this. And now we're having an aerial view here of what we have been seeing, what we did see earlier, and now it's once again.
You just saw, I'm talking about these people, they just witnessed a woman get her face blown off because, she threatened a law enforcement officer, and you guys are advancing on a law enforcement officer. You were advancing on a law enforcement officer who has a gun, who has every deserving right to make it home to his family. He doesn't have to be backing up. I didn't hear one thing from Tim Waltz talking about his own people. That's one officer standing in front of about 300 people. And they turned on their own cops. Unbelievable.
You can see them throwing some of those snowballs at those vehicles, some of which we can see have just drove off as well. Yeah.
All right. So the mob, after chasing off the police, they decide they're going to go down to a federal building and, decide to go in. I wanted you to see this because as you know about the woman and that she was basically a trained operative driving the cars and learning how to stop traffic, I want you to notice the signals that show coordination. They try to rush in, they get pushed out. And a black gentleman comes to the forefront and starts telling them what to do. This isn't an angry mob. This is a coordinated mob. Watch this. He tells them what to do. They all stop. Oh, that's a hand signal to stop here. As you watch videos of things over the next 24 to 48 hours, watch and see people's responses. Look who's directing these people. Forget the signs. It's more important to see who's telling them where to go. And then you can bring that back and discuss what the woman was who was blocking traffic. You'll see the video on X when they're talking about how she was very good at doing it. Did you notice the Palestinian looking, what do you call that thing? Scarf? These people aren't just ordinary people who are upset. In fact, if you saw who the woman was who got shot and the surrounding area, they were all white. This was the next ramp up. These people here weren't even there. These people showed up like a second battalion. They weren't even part of the original, incident. ICE out now. Do you think it's going to work with you banging on the federal building that all of a sudden, Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi and Cash are like, hey, let's round it up, guys. We're done here. No, this is futile. This is completely futile just to make asses of yourselves. Tim Waltz, if he truly wanted to make sure people were safe, well, the biggest thing is, I don't know, you can put up T-shirts, don't start nothing, don't be nothing. That is all you have to be telling these people. If a cop comes up to you and says, disperse, frickin' disperse. If a cop comes up to you and you threaten him, you might get got. It's very simple. There's no surprise here. Mm-mm.
Ice out now! 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 Ice out now!
Did you catch that? Did you see the black guy look back? Make sure people were still in cadence? Ice out now. Ice out now. It's almost like the coxswain, the guy that helps the people who row the boat. You have to know which cadence you're going to go through. What are we talking about? The guy in the marching scene who's going to, count off 1, 2. There's got to be somebody leading. The other sheep are just following.
Out now! Ice 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 out.
Did you see that? He's telling the other guy, no, hold on, don't do that yet. He's the guy with the whistle, and right now he's trying to tell this guy over here in the sweater what he should and shouldn't be doing. Did you hear what he just said? I don't know if you could hear it. I got my headset in. He said, you can't do that stuff with the S. He pulled him back. Nope, don't do that. So the word obviously got out. Don't do certain stuff because things might happen. And that guy was obviously the leader. Make it stop. Good gosh. I don't know how you can just keep going on and on with that. Ice out now. Ice out now. I'm gonna say it again. Insurrection Act or no Insurrection Act, we are never going to come back together as a country. These people are so far gone, it can never happen. It's beyond TDS. It's beyond hating Trump. They hate you for who you are. They hate me for who I am. They hate anybody who's trying to enjoy life in America. You can't even be that kind of person if it was just political. If it was just Trump versus the Democrats, you would still be an American. You would still want American virtues. You would still be proud of your country. These people are complete anarchists. They're commies. And so when people keep thinking, what do we need to do to get unified? It ain't happening. Find some place to live where you're safe because it's not going to happen. These people are never coming back.
I have to wonder how the homeowners feel after seeing what happened to the storefronts and businesses of Minnesota just 6 years ago, less than 6 years ago, how those homeowners in that area
we're only blocks away from where the George Floyd situation happened, where if you still go there nowadays, the buildings are still charred. There's still, it still looks like total destruction, just like it did back then. It's never
I told you guys the story many times. My father was in construction. That's why I liked real estate. And I told you how he got a government contract and was able to do the renovation on apartment project buildings. And I remember coming home from college and going back. I'm like, weren't we here a couple years ago? I'm going to be back here every 2 years. And I've also told you, I could go back to Connecticut, go back to the same area that was the hood, and it's still the hood right now. And so that's, by the way, this is Nick Sorter. When Nick is saying, this is right down the street from the George Floyd stuff, and it's still burned out. It's still burned out. They haven't done anything. Tim Walz, why haven't you fixed your community? Mayor Fry, why haven't you fixed your community? You're worried about protecting Somalians, and you got charred out buildings from 5 years ago.
Covered. And people are worried that that's going to happen again. And all signs point to them wanting it to happen again. Will, they want this to devolve even more. You have Tim Walz on TV alluding to this being a murder, as well as the mayor with his inflammatory rhetoric on TV. Why? Because there is no better way for them to distract from the billions and billions of dollars worth of fraud that we've been here on the ground uncovering over the past 2 weeks. It's the
bingo. Absolutely true. This is an opportunity for the Democrats. Remember, there was a hearing going on. And while that hearing was going on, they were talking about the extensive amount of fraud, how bad the fraud was, how much billions of dollars had been stolen. And all of a sudden, they got an opportunity. They got an opportunity to wipe it off the front page. Nobody on any of the networks is talking about it tonight. Every story is about this. It's like they put a pause button, a giant pause button on talking about the fraud. Completely switched. But unfortunately for them, the person who needs to care about it, he's not looking the other way. You can get CNN and MS Now and even Fox to a certain extent to look away, but he's not looking away. And Pam Bondi's not looking away. They know what they've got inside with Tim Walz. They know 100% what's going on. And in fact, I would venture to say that this dust up with this woman getting killed, it is a way for them to hide really what's going on. You see, the dog and pony show that we saw at the congressional hearing, I hate those things. I absolutely hate them. They are truly dog and pony shows. But now the people, not just like a Nick Shirley, other people are starting to dig in and find out just how much fraud there is. Remember why ICE was there and DHS? Because they surged 2,000 agents into the city, not just for newcomers, but to start diving into the Somalis and seeing who they were, and to start digging into the financial and looking at the books and everything else. And so that's when they're saying, get the F out of our city, that's what they're talking about. They're using this to say, get the F out of our city. They don't care about that one woman. They want ICE gone. Because as long as ICE or DHS or whoever's there, the more they're there digging, the worse it's going to get. And so they want people not just to stop. You notice that none of them really said today, can you stop taking newcomers out? It was leave. Get the F out. Why? Why would you want law enforcement to get the F out? Because they're digging further and further.
Best way for Tim Walz to finally be able to talk about something else and bury it.
Invading our cities, using excessive force lawlessly with new agents without proper training.
This kind of cinched it for me. As I began seeing what people were saying, if it was truly about this woman's life, you wouldn't be saying this kind of stuff. They're not trying to say anything about why the people were there. Typical liberal response, typical move. Don't talk about why they were there. Talk about what you want them to leave, why you don't want them there at all. Excessive force. somebody comes at you with a car, what kind of force are you going to use? It's not excessive. Was he supposed to just move out the way? He's supposed to retreat so she can do what she wants to? Is that what you're saying at this point? Yes, is exactly what they're saying. But now they're going to use this woman's death to benefit themselves.
And sadly, this was not unexpected, but it is egregious. It was an outright murder. And
I've heard that said a number of times today. Do you understand that murder is a charge? Murder is a legal charge on somebody. It's not something to just bandy about. You could have said he shot her. You could have said as a result of shooting her, she died. But when you say murder, you've already convicted him, and you're trying to get other people to pay attention to that conviction that you've already rendered. Because here's what's going to happen. Minneapolis is going to charge this guy himself, just like they did with the George Floyd guy. But unfortunately for them, this guy's a federal agent. So, but you can be rest assured they are going to come for him personally.
the fact that the administration is trying to defend the ICE officer when everyone can see with their own eyes that that car was trying to get away.
Now, this is what's really interesting. And they're using their same playbook from years ago. Why do I say that? Because if this was 2019, there would be no video of what happened. Twitter back in the day would have been deleting it so it didn't exist. So as he's saying, here's what you've seen. Well, we've all seen it. We've all seen 20 different angles of it. They count on you not having seen it. And they still remember back in the day when this thing would have been erased from the internet. Nobody, if you didn't see it when you did, you wouldn't have seen it. But now they don't realize people got smart. Not only looking at it, they're downloading it. And they're downloading it and putting on other servers so other people, just in case. But even that doesn't matter because Elon isn't deleting things. And so the only way you can get on camera and try to say, have you seen the video? And then tell you what you saw, that your eyes didn't actually see what you saw, is because you don't expect most people to have seen it. That's how bad Democrat sheep are. They will now try to convince people that what you saw isn't what you saw. And it works on some of these zombies. It really does. You will see people parroting what he's about to say here.
Because it still turned away from the officer after she was shot in the head.
I wish Maximus or somebody was here. The vehicle turned away, as he said, after she was shot in the head. I'm not a forensic doctor or anything like that, any pathologist. I don't deal with that. But I'm pretty sure if I'm holding the steering wheel and I get popped 3 times in the face, that my body is going to lurch one way or the other. So, of course, it may appear as though the wheel turned, and perhaps it did for those 2 or 3 seconds before breath left their body. Because obviously when she did turn it, you could tell by the time it hit the white car, she was no longer with us. But he's using stuff that ordinary people wouldn't even think of.
So the fact that they are arguing that somehow this is domestic terrorism, much less an attack on ICE, is preposterous. This officer not only needs to be fired and suspended, but based on the video, he needs to be charged with murder.
Murder. Based on the video. Based on the video that I'm hoping you haven't seen. Because that's the only way you could come up with that. That is the only basis for his statement, is that I hope people haven't seen this yet. Or I'm actually convincing people that what they saw isn't really what they saw. Because every single one of us picked up our phone and went, oh, yeah, I can see her doing it. Yep, she tried to hit him and he popped her. I can see it. And he's telling everybody it didn't happen based on what I saw in the video. There's no way. You guys are making excuses. You can't believe your own eyes. The Democrats are built upon deception, purely deception. Everything is a game to them. And so you're going to be hearing that more. Actually, you've already heard it a couple times. You heard Ilhan Omar say it. You heard Tim Walz say it. Now you hear him saying it. Didn't happen. Nope, didn't happen. Not like that.
And do you think that will happen?
I have no idea what will happen.
Do you need to look at the Homeland Security budget as a result of it?
I think we will have to, yes.
I just saw the disturbing video. Obviously, it's a serious situation. There's going to be a full investigation, as we all know and expect. Look, it appears to us, I guess anybody who sees the video from certain angles, that the driver of the vehicle weaponized that vehicle against law enforcement officers and against bystanders. It was a dangerous situation. People make snap judgments in those situations, and it's a really sad outcome. Look, I do think that it's right. I think I guess maybe it was Homeland or someone put out a statement that this clearly appears to be the result of this just months-long rhetoric against law enforcement and people encouraging that kind of violence. And so we call upon all the citizens of Minneapolis to be calm. We don't want anyone to be hurt. We need law enforcement to be able to do their jobs, and it's a terrible situation. But we wait.
As I was watching that, I had a question about the questions. See, I look at things differently sometimes. I had a question about the question. What, you've seen the video. Probably almost everybody here has seen the video, correct? Yeah. What question could you have about the video? I mean, I personally probably saw 7 different angles. And I looked. I was trying to be objective, and I peered at this thing and go, did he, would he, did he, could he have done? And it happened very quickly. And the big problem I have with what you just heard was liberal media people trying to act as though there's a question to this. Because now this is where spin comes in. Every single one of us has seen this, and this is now their job, the complicit media, to start asking questions about something that's not really questionable. If you had a grand jury, if you had a regular jury come out and say, here, look, well, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. He did what he had to do. You don't like it, and what Mike Johnson said is true. It's a sad ending. It's very sad. I'm pretty sure, even though he didn't lose his life, he doesn't feel good about it. Nobody would really feel good about taking somebody's life, but he gets to go home. And other people, when they're talking about this is what should have happened, or he should have done it this way. You're watching too many movies. If you think people really learn how to shoot to wing somebody, you're watching a wrong movie, or you've watched too many of them. Well, you didn't have to shoot her in the head. All right, so I'm about to run you over with my SUV, and you're taking beat on me. Are you trying to say, can I pop him in his shoulder? Hold on. You got a split second. A split second. Maybe he wouldn't have been that good of a shot. I don't know if you saw the car, but it was like one hole. So he put like pop. It probably all went in the same hole. I didn't see multiple bullet holes. So whatever he shot, it looks like they all hit the same place. But you're going to have people now begin to doubt whether or not he had to kill her. Couldn't he just, done something else?
The moment you're talking about the context, right? I'm talking about the actual shooting. It doesn't help having a bunch of talking heads. Like, case in point, do you know how many angles there were to this shooting and which ones were preferred by whom. If you went on Blue Sky, you had a specific angle. But on Twitter, you had that angle, and then you had another angle, and then you had another angle. God forbid there was no X. Anyway, but I think you and I.
Bingo. If Elon Musk hadn't bought X, these videos would be gone. There would only be that one obfuscated one from the tree line. And then this guy would be dragged into a kangaroo court and probably go away for the rest of his life. Thank God everybody walks around with a movie studio in their pocket, even protesters. And once they quickly uploaded it or they went live, it was right there. Angle after angle after angle. And you can stitch them all together. People froze frame. They slowed everything down. We all could see perfectly what was going on.
We're agreeing that of course I want to know more about that. But the actual shooting, whether it's justified or not, I can't tell you. I'm not going to, I don't have the expertise.
Right, but that's the moment we've got to fix. Because I think better
that's not on us.
I know,
Harold.
better policy, like I don't understand. And I would ask Lawrence this, the reason I was saying that the person didn't have a gun in the car doesn't mean the car couldn't be a weapon. But I'd have just shot her tires out. I mean,
that comment right there, I know a bunch of you guys who and ladies who have your own weapons and have learned how to use them, you probably just got a big chuckle out of that, because that's what liberals think, because they don't handle weapons. You're going to hear that. Well, could he have just like shot the engine block out, or maybe, just a tire, or winged her shoulder? Could he have done any of that? So I'm going to ask you, any of you who have weapons and have gone to a range or anything, when you see the outline and you got to, look at center mass, do you try to aim for like the outside mark? When you're up there, you're like, I don't want to hit center mass. I want to hit the outline. I want to hit like the top of his shoulder. Can I just focus there? Nobody. Not even Robin. Robin, when the first time we took her to the range, we brought a shotgun. And Robin, you got some anger issues, because when they pulled the thing in, she blew out like the whole crotch area. And I'm like, oh, hey, I get it. I understand. She was laughing. She goes, no, I was actually aiming down there. I'm like, wow. Which one of you have gone to a range and said, I don't want to hit center mass? No. I just want to get the outside shoulder. Said nobody who's ever been to a range. If you're in bed at night and, like I said earlier, something happens, you hear a noise, you get the elbow from the wife, and you go to the safe or wherever it is you keep your thing, and you start walking downstairs, are you hoping that if there's a bad guy down there, you might just, let me shoot him in the calf? Or are you going to try and take him out? Obvious answer. Liberals, they don't understand it. As soon as he said that, I'm like, dude, you're watching way too many damn movies. Can we just wing him? Can we just try to get the tire? Dude, you're watching too many movies. But that's the problem with liberals. Completely.
That's not how they're trained. You know what, Harold? I'm just going to say this real quick.
I'm not trying to be critical.
Before I went through the academy, I used to think things like that. Officers aren't trained. You know how hard it is to shoot a tire? It's hard. It's very hard. It's very inconsistent. Right. And so...
Hold on. I was trying to get Howard's face, because Howard, at that point, realized I don't handle weapons. I don't know anything about a weapon, and I stepped right into this one. I look stupid, don't I? Yeah, you look pretty stupid, man. At that point, when Lawrence starts telling him, you can't do that. Nobody trains to wing somebody. But a liberal wouldn't know that. They hate guns. They don't want to be around guns. They don't. I bet you if you told most of them center mass, they wouldn't even know what you're talking about. Hey, I went to the range today and I popped like 6 center mass. Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean center mass? They have no idea. None. And so you just saw Howard's face. And he was like, oh, did I just step in it? You stepped in it big time, bro.
People, when they look at these videos, they look at it from a civilian standpoint with no training. I will say this finally. I grieve for the young girl and I grieve for her family. But there are consequences to your actions.
Investigation into these.
That's the liberal problem. Liberals don't believe that there should be consequences, direct consequences for what they do. And it's always a lack of personal accountability. Trump made me do it. The ICE agent is causing chaos. The ICE agent being in town caused her to block traffic. The sun was shining and she couldn't see that the guy was in front of the car. You watch, every excuse you can possibly imagine is going to come up, except for the one is, why did she take off, turn off the car and get out? When he knocked on the side door, that would have been very easy. Okay, I'll get out, officer. But you won't hear that. Every other thing, sun in her eyes, she was afraid, she stepped on the gas pedal instead of the brake. They will make anything except personal accountability a reason.
Fraud allegations is far from over, but sources are telling Fox again this morning that now that Governor Tim Walz says he's not going to run for re-election, the feds are also shifting their focus to the state's Attorney General, Keith Ellison. Why? Because a newly obtained clip by Fox that we just got yesterday, that was from 2021, has Ellison meeting in this recording with a group of people who are asking for his help. The problem is those people, you guys, were then just days later arrested for one of the biggest fraud scandals in the state. Watch.
Okay, before we get to her now. So she's setting up, in case you don't know who Keith Ellison is, Keith Ellison is the Attorney General of Minnesota. This just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Keith Ellison is probably going to be the guy who ends up charging the cop from ICE that shot the lady. They got to deflect here, because as this news keeps coming out, there's nothing they can do other than, maybe burn the place up this weekend.
The only way we can protect what we have is by inserting ourselves into the political arena, putting our votes where it needs to be, but most importantly, putting our dollars in the right place and supporting candidates that will fight to protect our interests.
That's right.
You can only protect our interests when we have your back, and you don't have to worry about who's behind you.
I don't know who gave them that recording. That recording, if you look here on the bottom, it says December 11th, 2021. Somebody, I guess it says Attorney Kenneth Udebach, somebody has been sitting on this thing for 5 years. Somebody had an IOU or a get out of jail card here and said, I've got this recording of the Attorney General. I just need the right time to drop it. It's my get out of jail card. So you know what happened. You can easily surmise what happened as she was talking about the other mass arrests. Somebody got arrested, and just like we've been saying, there are people chirping. Somebody said, I've got this CD, and it's this thumb drive, and on it I've got a recording of the Attorney General taking a bribe. Because it's been sitting there for 5 years. Anytime in the last 5 years, he could have went to a newspaper or anybody. Now it comes out, and then Fox gets a copy of it. There is stuff happening behind the scenes in Minnesota that we don't know that is really starting to show this thing is really bad. Tim Walz doesn't want to go for, decide he's not going to run for governor. Now people are like, you need to resign. Now they're going after Keith Ellison. So much happening. This thing here today, speed bump. They're going to try and amplify it. People got to keep their eye on the ball here.
So now officials are saying, why was Ellison meeting with this group in the first place? They were asking him to help them get more federal funding, offering votes and campaign donations for support. So the audio clip's part of an ongoing investigation into the widespread fraud across the state. Ellison's
the audio is from a widespread fraud investigation. How many people, I don't know, you guys must have attorneys. How many of your attorneys leak investigative evidence? Somebody dropped dime. And we're going to see this happen more and more and more. You don't just get evidence unless you get it in the mail or it's anonymously sent to you. These people are in big trouble.
Is sharing an op-ed that he wrote in the local paper. He said, in part, I took a meeting in good faith with people I didn't know, and some turned out to have done bad things. I did nothing for them and took nothing from them. But documents obtained by the Center for the American Experiment say some of those non-convicted Somali fraudsters that he met with donated money to Ellison's campaign after that meeting. It's money, though.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You took the money. They got a money trail on you. Now what are you going to do? Now, the Attorney General, which is probably the third highest office in the state, governor, lieutenant governor, probably Attorney General. This entire state is one big cesspool, and it's probably this big compared to what's going on in California.
He did later give back once this group was indicted, according to reports. So there's just...
He gave it back. That's like going and robbing a bank and then, yeah, well, you know, it's 5 years later. I know I robbed this bank in 2021. Let me just do a deposit real quick. You guys can have it back. Too late. Too late. Doesn't mean the crime didn't happen.
So many levels of this fraud that's been going on for years, according to officials. Fox obtained that full, nearly 1 hour-long clip of the meeting with the lawyer of Amy Bach. For people wondering who that is there on your screen, she's the Minnesota woman who was one of many convicted last year in that $250 million Feeding Our Future scam. That's how this all started with Bach. She's behind bars, though, but her legal team tells me, where's the accountability for the governor and the attorney general? He said the state let the fraud happen. Do you think some of these politicians should be held accountable?
I would like to see someone in the state. I don't care whether it's the governor. I don't care whether it's the attorney general.
And what we should be...
Oh, they screwed some people over, and now these people are collecting on it. These people are absolutely pissed off. Man, I don't even know like where they go with this at this point, because crazy. Hey, absolutely crazy. Let me tell you about Chapter. You guys know about Chapter. I talk about Chapter quite a bit every time we do a show, because right about now is Medicare enrollment time. And obviously Medicare is confusing. You guys know, I said it many times, I just turned 65. Actually, not just turned. It was, a couple months ago. But I can confirm that labyrinth that you have to go through to get Medicare correct is a pain in the butt. Keeping track of enrollment periods, understanding all your options, making sure you're on the right plan. And then the big problem I found out is that obviously prior to me turning 65, Robin and I are on the same plan. And then when you turn to Medicare, do you know your wife doesn't just be part of your plan? She gets hanging out there. She has nothing to do. Medicare is for you personally. Like, what am I supposed to do about my wife? You're going to have to get something in the interim. You need to understand all your options, make sure you're on the right plan, and don't have to spend so much time and energy to get it. And between Medicare scams, corrupt agents, bloated insurance companies, it's easy to make mistakes that can cost you thousands. That's why I'm happy I called the guys at Chapter. Actually, they approached me, and it was a nice marriage. They're very honest. They're busy, so sometimes it's hard to get a hold of them, but they're the only Medicare advisor that looks at every plan across the country, helping people save an average of $1,100 a year. People are so relieved when they talk to Chapter. Let me just tell you, even if you're not looking to be one of those people who has to save money on a premium, which everybody would, probably does, they also have Cadillac plans if you want the best and want to pay more. So understand, they will compare every plan in the country and get you the best one. And if you're already got the best plan, they'll tell you, hey, you're looking good, and there's no need to change anything. These guys won't push you to buy a plan you don't want, and their support is completely free. So if you're turning 65, or if you have any questions about your existing Medicare coverage, call them at 475-328-3545 to get the most out of Medicare. And many people wish they'd call sooner. All right, let me take a 90-second break here.
Back to Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
All right, thank you guys for coming back. Let's take a few comments from you guys. Jeff says it's not the crime, it's the cover-up that gets him in the end. Yeah, and thinking that you can just return the money that you can return the stolen money that'll get you out of it. Notice how the second part she said as well, you know, and other stuff that Fox obtained. How did Fox obtain it? Somebody had to drop dimes. So I guess what I'm saying is, you can bet there are so many people under investigation right now. They're walking into the room and going, "What do you need?" Because once you're told what they got on you, you're like, "Hey, who showed you how to do this?" He did. All right, give me his name, give me information, show me where the money is, because right now, you know, these people are definitely trying to cover their own butts. 51 here and wearing short sleeves. Oh, not bad. 51, I'd have to put a blanket on. They said they had over 1,000, exactly, they had over 1,000 whistleblower reports over the years, all disregarded. And so it's not going to be too hard to just look at some of those whistleblower reports for sure. Man, that'd be crazy. That's what training teaches anyone who's in the military, law enforcement. You can't hesitate when your life or the lives of people you're protecting. You can't hesitate. Obviously, Susan has handled a weapon as well. I'm gonna take you out. I have to protect you. I got to take that best shot. Let's see what else we got here. Chapter, wow. Chapter knocked $110 a month off Part B. That's $1,300 a year. Wow. Thank you for telling me that. I love hearing when people have good news. A woman contacted me today by email. She said that there was a problem that she had with Lear, and just if you have problems with people, let me know and we can help work it out. I just noticed something. Let me go ahead and cut to this. Jesse Waters is interviewing JD Vance. Obviously, it was from before today. It's a taped interview, but let's take a listen in.
Always been, that's the way it is again under the president's leadership.
We just seized a Russian oil tanker. Russian submarines were trying to slip it past the Navy. This thing's heating up.
I think people overstate that. First of all, it was a fake Russian oil tanker. They basically tried to pretend to be a Russian oil tanker in an effort to avoid the sanctions regime. But people always ask, how do you control Venezuela? And we're actually seeing it play out in real time. The way that we control Venezuela is we control the purse strings, we control the energy resources, and we tell the regime, you're allowed to sell the oil so long as you serve America's national interest. You're not allowed to sell it if you can't serve America's national interest. And that's how we exert incredible pressure on that country without wasting wasting a single American life without endangering a single American citizen. That is called critical, high-quality diplomacy. We've done it. We've done it time and again, but we just did it in Venezuela.
The Democrats say Trump is greedy. He's all about oil and empire.
He's greedy to serve the American interest, and that's what you want in an American president. You cannot have people taking advantage of the United States in our own hemisphere. The President of the United States said he's done with that. I think it's interesting. The Democrats call the president greedy, but in what sense has any of this enriched him or enriched the administration? It's enriched the American people, which is what you want out of an American president. Somebody who's thinking to themselves, how do I serve the American people's best interest? How do I go and accomplish good things for the American people? That's a good thing to have in an American president. You want somebody who's greedy for the American people. The Democrats are greedy for themselves.
Well, Jasmine Crockett said you guys kidnapped Maduro.
We engaged in a law enforcement action. We had a legitimate indictment for Maduro for narco-terrorism, for weapons smuggling and weapons trafficking, and we went in with the best military in the world. We got our guy. He's going to stand trial. By the way, he's given the full due process rights that are entitled to anybody who's in the United States. I think he's going to go away. He's going to be found guilty. That's not a kidnapping. That's a law enforcement operation. And Jasmine Crockett, of all people, she has the least amount of room to talk on this stuff. She doesn't know what she's talking about. As the president said, you couldn't have a worse spokesperson, a person with less knowledge about world affairs. It's telling that she's the person speaking for the Democrats on this issue.
You guys have designated the cartels as terrorist organizations.
Because they are, yeah.
How do you win the war on drugs if Americans love cocaine?
That's the one big pushback I've gotten is when I criticize the Venezuelans for trafficking cocaine. You had a lot of people say, we don't like fentanyl, but some people do like cocaine. Unfortunately, cocaine is a very bad drug. And importantly, Jesse, it is a major profit center for the Venezuelan cartels. So if they sell a little bit of fentanyl, but a lot of cocaine, and they use that cocaine to spread and further their cartel operations, that means a lot more poison is going to be coming into the United States. So for all the people that love cocaine, I am sorry, the President of the United States does not love cocaine. We encourage you to go to rehab, and we're going to keep on pursuing America's interest.
Greenland, how far are you guys willing to go?
Well, the president is going to make the ultimate determination here, but there's been a lot of bellyaching from Europe, and Europe has failed to contend with the fundamental argument the president and the entire administration has made. Greenland is critical, not just to our national security, but to the world's national security. People don't realize this. The entire missile defense infrastructure is partially dependent on Greenland. If, God forbid, the Russians or the Chinese, not saying they're going to, but if, God forbid, in the future, somebody launched a nuclear missile into our continent, they launched a nuclear missile at Europe, Greenland is a critical part of that missile defense. So you ask yourself, have the Europeans, have the Danes done a proper job of securing Greenland and making sure it can continue to serve as an anchor for world security and missile defense? And the answer is obviously they haven't. They've underinvested in their security. They haven't done a good job of securing that area, that landmass. And what I hear them say is they'll always make an argument about the past. They'll say, well, we fought together in World War II, or we fought together in the war on terrorism. And we're grateful for that. We love having these allies, but just because you did something smart 25 years ago doesn't mean you can't do something dumb now. And the President of the United States is saying very clearly, you are not doing a good job with respect to Greenland. We're going to make sure we defend America's interests. And I think the president's willing to go as far as he has to make sure he does that.
They're saying it's too cold for American soldiers to handle. You've been there.
Who is saying that? Jasmine Crockett?
The Danes. Probably Crockett, too.
I think Americans have done very well in some very cold places. I will say I wouldn't want to serve there, but luckily the vice president's residence is here in Washington, D.C.
Okay. The Democrats have a little bit of a Somali problem. They've let it
America
go.
has a bit of a Somali problem.
Especially the Democrats in Minnesota. Why'd they just let it happen right under their nose?
Well, a couple of things, Jesse. First of all, if you look at the amount of fraud in the welfare system, according to the statistics I've seen, 85% of Somalians who are in the United States, legal and illegal, are collecting some form of welfare benefits. So that's not to disparage the other 15%, but when you're at 85% of a population that is collecting welfare, that suggests that we have really done something wrong with regards to vetting, and that's the fundamental issue. Even if there's no fraud, 85% collecting welfare is way too many damn people collecting welfare, getting rich off the American taxpayer while a lot of Americans struggle. That's unacceptable. What's going on in Minneapolis, I think, is actually representative of a broader fraud scheme that we're going to see all over the country. We're going to see it in California. We're going to see it in other places too, where people get rich from the American taxpayer. The Somalian fraud, for example, daycare fraud. You've got Americans, we've got programs set up to make it easier for Americans to get their kids in daycare so they can have proper child care. You take that money and you siphon it off to Somalian fraudsters. That's a double theft. Number one, that means a lot of American families can't afford their child care. Number two, that means a lot of American taxpayers are being fleeced. It's totally unacceptable. I believe, Jesse, we're going to have some very big announcements on this stuff in the next couple of days. I don't want to get ahead of the president on anything, but we believe that there is a nationwide fraud ring that's rooted in rooted in illegal aliens and others taking advantage of the American welfare system. We're going to get to the root of it, and anybody who's involved is going to get prosecuted.
Well, if there's a massive fraud ring, there's a cover-up going on. In Minnesota, they were just caught forging documents, trying to cover their tracks. Should Tim Walz resign?
Well, I think Tim Walz should resign, but look, I've beaten up on Tim Walz enough. I don't want to do it anymore in your program. I almost feel bad for the guy, except for the fact that he should have seen this. And whether there was something criminal, whether he was aware of the fraud, which would be criminal, or whether he simply looked the other way, it's a massive, massive failure of government. Look, you have to ask yourself, if you're in Minneapolis and you have a person who came to the United States impoverished 2 months ago, and all of a sudden they're driving a Mercedes or a Lamborghini, it is your job as a public official to ask, how did that person get so rich so quickly when they're also collecting a welfare check? The fact that that's failed so often in Minnesota, but frankly, it failed in California and other states as well, means that we have political I would say political corruption, welfare corruption at a very massive scale. The Trump administration, by the way, we've already sent hundreds and hundreds of additional people, of resources that are starting to investigate this stuff, get to the bottom of it. Stephen Miller sent people who are literally going door to door at some of these fraudulent daycare centers and trying to understand just how deep the rabbit hole goes. But this is going to be a long-term effort from the Trump administration to root out corruption and actually look after Americans for a change and their hard-earned money.
You're sending investigators to California.
We are sending investigators to a lot of places to try to get to the root of this welfare fraud. I think what it revealed, Jesse, is something I frankly wasn't aware of until a few weeks ago, which is it's not just that people are getting welfare who shouldn't get welfare. That is true, right? These programs exist to take care of Americans who are down on their luck, not to enrich fraudsters. But it's bigger than that. It's that people take this money and create whole businesses around siphoning money from the American taxpayer. So again, you've got poor people who can't get what they need. You've also got American taxpayers who are getting fleeced. It is the ultimate lose-lose proposition. And I think Minneapolis just really revealed how ridiculous it was. I mean, Jesse, this is the most low IQ fraud scheme imaginable. Like, it's almost shocking that you would have people running a daycare with the quality Leering Center. If you're running a daycare and you can't spell the word learning or you can't spell the word kids, that suggests that maybe you should not be in early childhood education. And the fact that it was so obvious and so blatant does suggest a level of political corruption. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Well, Tim Walz should be worried because you can't misspell learning and take someone's money.
He should be worried for many reasons.
He called you weird. Remember that?
I know. Because I don't like Somali fraudsters. I guess that makes me weird. Guilty as charged.
Gavin Newsom, he says, you guys want to come look at California? Bring it on.
Yeah, well, we will. We appreciate that invitation, Gavin, and we are going to accept that invitation because, look, California, more than almost any other state, has been so glaring and obvious about the fact that they're giving welfare benefits to illegal aliens. Like, that's not, you go to the California Medicaid website and they will advertise that they are spending American tax dollars to give Medicaid to illegal aliens. You think there's not fraud there? You think there aren't people who are creating fraudulent doctor's offices, fraudulent payment schemes? There are. They're getting rich off of the generosity of the American taxpayer. The political corruption that enables it has got to stop, and that's what we're focused on.
Your administration had a big year, got a lot done. Now you're in your second year. What would be the one thing economically you want to achieve now?
Yeah, so the big thing we did achieve is we cut the trade deficit by over 60% in the president's first year in office. That's amazing. What that means is more jobs coming to the United States, more investment coming to the United States of America. I want to build on that. You know, we talk about this $18 trillion of new investment that's coming into the United States. I want to build as many factories as possible, give as many Americans high-paying jobs as possible, and make as much of our own stuff. And I think while we do that, we've got to tackle the housing issue for a lot of young Americans. They feel like they're priced out of the housing market. The president's about to make some really big announcements on that stuff in the next couple of weeks. And what we're going to do is we want to preserve the wealth that a lot of people have accrued in their homes while also making it possible for young people to afford their first home, make it affordable for young families to raise young families. And I think we can do that. I think that we've actually got some good policies that are going to thread that needle very well, be very good for young Americans and young American families. That's what I'm most focused on economically over the next year, because I think if you really give people a sense of ownership in this country, a sense that they can build something, build a nest egg, build a family, that is the trick to reinvigorating the American dream. That's what the president's most focused on, and we're going to do it.
Are young Americans getting married? Are they settling down, having babies?
Not like they used to, and that's a big problem, Jesse. I mean, think about it. What really makes life worthwhile? It's not your job. It's not what school you went to. It's falling in love. It's building a family. It's having kids. Those are the things that I think really bring meaning to most people's lives, certainly to mine. I imagine yours too, unless you're a crazy person, but I think you're a Republican. But that is happening less. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason it's happening less is what happened to housing under Joe Biden. It literally doubled in 4 years. Young Americans are telling us they can't afford to buy a home, they can't afford to start a family, they can't afford daycare because Somali fraudsters are ripping off the money that we're trying to put into the system to help people afford childcare. We've got to do a better job of giving young Americans a shot at the American dream. I think that we've made so much progress over the past year, but look, we're digging out of a massive hole that Joe Biden left us. There's so much more work to do, and we're excited to get it done.
And if you get the immigrants out of the country that came here illegally, that's going to bring prices down. Are we getting these illegals out fast enough?
We always want to get them out faster. A lot of the ICE agents that we have hired in the past 6 months, they're not even done with training. So all of the big investments that we've made in border security, what we've done is actually gotten 2.5 million illegal aliens out without any of the really big marquee things that we've been working on. That was just simple willpower and the President of the United States coming in and saying, this is done. I think we're going to see those deportation numbers ramp up as we get more and more people online, working for ICE, going door to door and making sure that if you're an illegal alien, you've got to get out of this country. And if you want to come back, apply through the proper channel.
If things don't work out for me at Fox, could I work for ICE? You never know.
You could work for ICE, but look, you're a very compelling communications guy. You can be a speechwriter, assistant speechwriter in the vice president's office if you ever find yourself unemployed.
A transgender hammer attack at JD's house. The VP responds. Next.
All right. Well, while they're at commercial break, I got to show you this video. We knew that the left would complain and have all kinds of excuses. Now, the woman who died today, her last name is Good, G-O-O-D. You're not going to believe this. Talk about crazy, crazy liberals.
Normal any of these stories are that we are covering today.
Well, I haven't lived in Minneapolis for a long time, but I do remember that I think there is something called a Good Samaritan law in Minneapolis, where if you can give help, you are supposed to give help. There are reports, and there is some video now of a doctor on the scene willing to help and not being allowed to get close to her. There's some video that shows that the ICE agents or whatever agency they were working for, were milling about, but not necessarily going to her aid. So as we come to understand this story, I think we're going to see the layers, of tragedy in this case, and trying to understand what happened, what could have been done to prevent this, what could have been done possibly, to save her life. I was listening in our earlier segment to Eddie and Jacob, and talking about a woman who was out there working with ICE monitors, involved in peaceful protests, and I keep thinking right now of her name is Good. How mystic and is that her last name is Good. And I keep thinking of John Lewis talking about getting in good trouble.
I am not laughing at the woman who's no longer with us. I'm laughing at these idiots. Because her name was Good, she must have been doing good. She was in some good trouble. Well, she was actually in some of the best trouble. She won't have to worry about it ever again. And I saw the video she's talking about, and it's very, very graphic. I don't advise you to take a look at it, but somebody's taking a video from the perspective of directly across the road from where the car is or where it rested, and she slumped over, and he goes, I'm a physician. Let me go render first aid. And the ICE officer was probably trying to be nice. He's like, no, we have our own EMS people. We got this taken care of. And people are screaming, yeah, but there's nobody over there working on her. And as I was watching him, I realized the guy was probably having a lot of decorum, but the reason nobody was working on her because the dude didn't miss. There was nothing to go work on. And he was probably trying to let him know there's nothing, you don't want to go over there. We've already checked. She's checked out. But he couldn't say that in the video. He was trying to let the people know we got this under control. Don't worry about it. He just put 3 in her face. But see, libnuts don't understand that. All they want to do is complain and make anecdotal stories about her name is Good, so she must be good. I can't with these people. Can't. President Trump, while we're waiting for J.D. Vance to come back, this was a very interesting post that he just put up. Very interesting. I think you'll find this interesting. Listen to this. It was a great honor to speak with the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro. I'm going to do it like like they do it and give the accent. Who called to explain the situation of drugs and other disagreements that we have had. I appreciated his call and tone and look forward to meeting him in the near future. Arrangements are being made between Secretary of State Marco Rubio. They got to make another meme. They got to make a meme of Marco being a, travel agent. And the foreign minister of Colombia. The meeting will take place in the White House in Washington, D.C. So, despite standing on a stage and telling everybody that, Trump is this and Trump is that, and I'm not afraid of Trump, he's coming to Washington to kiss the ring. He's coming to Washington to realize I can't take this guy on. I can't. So at this point, Gustavo Petro is coming to America. He's coming to America, and he wants to talk to Donald Trump. Donald Trump is exercising all of the demons. Next, after Petro comes, count on it. Count on it. You're going to see whoever's in charge of Cuba. I keep saying Castro, but Castro's dead. Let's go back to this.
Have you seen this guy cross his legs? Have you ever seen anyone cross their legs like that?
My legs don't cross like that, Jesse. I'll leave. You can interpret that however you want to.
Gavin and Kamala are on a collision course.
Yes.
Who's going to win?
The dumbest candidate will probably win. That's my guess with the Democratic Party. I mean, look, the Democrats have a couple of big issues, and one is that they lean so far into wokeism that they can't see the obviousness of the fact, which is that Kamala Harris is not qualified to be president of the United States. That's why she got the vice presidential nomination. That's why she got the presidential nomination. This is who Kamala Harris is. Now, the flip side is I think you have a unbelievably corrupt and incompetent governor in Gavin Newsom. The fact that those are the two frontrunners just suggests how deeply deranged the Democrat Party is. Let them fight it out. We'll figure it out.
May the dumbest candidate win.
May the dumbest candidate win.
The Democrats are running in the midterms on the cost of living. Are you worried about that?
Pot meat kettle. No, I'm not worried about that for the simple reason that the cost of living crisis, and it is real for a lot of American families, was caused by the Democrats. You had the highest inflation in 40 years under Joe Biden's administration. We haven't even been in office for a year, and you've already seen prices start to come down. You've seen rents start to come down. You've seen groceries leveling off. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. But the people who are going to do that work is the Trump administration, is the President of the United States, who is solving the Democrats' affordability crisis. You don't give power back to the very people who set the house on fire. You give more power to the person who put the fire out.
If the Democrats do win the midterms, is Trump getting impeached again?
I'm sure he'll get impeached. Look, they have nothing to actually run on or govern on. Their entire obsessive focus of that party is they hate Donald Trump. So if they ever get power, are they going to lower Americans' taxes? No. Are they going to make your life more affordable? No. Are they going to solve the crime crisis? No. What they're going to do is they're going to spend all their time and all of your money trying to get Donald Trump. I think it's ridiculous. That's what they're running on. But the American people are going to make this determination. I think the American people should vote for the people who want to make their life more affordable and want to make their neighborhoods safer. That's what we're trying to deliver every single day.
Have you been watching this New York Mayor Mondani guy?
The guy who wants to take all property away from white people?
Yeah.
Yeah, he seems pretty out there, huh?
Is he a threat?
I mean, you live in New York. He's a threat to you, I'd say.
He sure is. But politically...
Is he politically a threat? I mean,
got
look,
some traction.
You know, I actually really admired some of his messaging because he focused not on the woke crazy stuff. He wasn't running on white people shouldn't own property. He was running on bread and butter issues, which is what I want politicians to focus on. Even if you disagree with their solutions, I would love it if the debate among Democrats and Republicans was, how do we deliver prosperity to the American people? But he runs on actually some pretty common sense bread and butter issues. He gets in there and he sounds like a total crazy person who wants to take your house away because you have the wrong skin color. That's not a threat to me politically. I think it's a threat to our country, but it's not a threat politically.
You were almost Paulie P'd. Someone came to your house, trans guy, with a hammer.
I don't know what that means.
Paul Pelosi smashed your windows.
Sorry.
Can you believe these people?
Well, I can believe these people. I've never heard Paulie P'd. I'm going to steal that one in the future. Thank you, Jesse.
Just a nickname.
But, you know, when it happened, I think everybody had the same reaction that we did, which is it's probably a deranged left-wing person who wanted to cause terror or maybe worse among my family. Look, we're grateful the first responders did their job. The person's in custody. And we're still kind of getting to the bottom of the motive a little bit, but my guess is the same as yours. And look, left-wing violence is a problem in this country, Jesse. We've said this time and time again. My dear friend Charlie Kirk was murdered by a left-wing radical. The President of the United States was almost killed a year and a half ago. And then again, a few months after that, we have a real crisis where there are far too many left-wing people who don't want to debate, who don't want to disagree, who don't want to try to persuade their fellow citizens. They want to try to kill their fellow citizens, and that's a real problem.
You feel safe?
I do feel safe. And look, Jesse, I signed up for this. My attitude on this stuff is whatever God wills is whatever God wills. I'm going to do the job I think I have to for the American people. And, hopefully they're happy with it, and hopefully we do some good. And whatever God has in store, I accept it.
How was your first Christmas here as vice president? What did Usha get you?
Usha always gives me very practical presents. She got me some sweatpants, some exercise clothes.
Is that a hint?
Probably, but I'll take the hint. Some socks, things like that. You know, I got her a surprise party because she turned 40 yesterday.
Oh.
So we went out to California to visit her family.
Nice.
Gavin Newsom did not assault us or send any Somali fraudsters after us. But we did a little surprise party with her parents, and that was really fun. We had a great Christmas, and the kids, look, they love their life. And that's one of the great things about this is, yes, it's an important job, and yes, there's a lot of sacrifice that comes along with public service, but our kids are young enough that they're able to just have a normal life as kids, and that's all I could ask for as a dad.
Well, that's great. Happy birthday to Usha, and
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, man. Take care.
So should you have a...
All right, everybody. I saw some questions about Alpha. That's why I didn't put it in the billboard when we put up the show, because I was going to have his head and face on it to promote him coming. But he contacted Ashley. He had to reschedule, which I completely understand because with everything that happened today, anybody and everybody who's got a podcast, or they got to tell what their side of what they're thinking. So I'm pretty sure he had to go live as well, or get ready for a show, but we will reschedule ASAP as soon as possible and get him on here. We're going to be talking about, well, we're probably going to be talking about that 17th letter thing, and we're going to be talking about the Insurrection Act and things of that nature. So stay tuned. He will be back tomorrow. I just want to let you know, tomorrow, who do we have tomorrow, providing everything goes correctly? Let me check here. Tomorrow, we've got Monica Page from the White House. She will be on. And then we have somebody from HHS on Friday. So we've got 2 interviews the next couple of days to end out the week. In closing, before I get out of here tonight, I want to show you something very humorous. The libs didn't find it humorous because this came from CBS, and CBS did a tribute of sort to Marco Rubio. Check this out. It's hilarious.
Only in America, the many lives and many jobs of Marco Rubio, the son of Cuban immigrants and a former Florida senator. He's now the face of U.S. foreign policy and President Trump's point man on Venezuela, all in addition to his roles as Secretary of State, interim national security advisor, and acting national archivist and USAID chief. Whatever you think of his politics, you got to admit it's an impressive resume. And now AI memes have added to that portfolio, casting Secretary Rubio as the new governor of Minnesota, the new Shah of Iran, the Prime Minister of Greenland, the new manager of Manchester United, the head of Hilton Hotels, and highest of high honors of all, the new Michelin Man. Now, back in real life, of course, these memes may not add up to much, but for Rubio's hometown fans, which are many around here in Miami, it is a sign of how Florida, once an American punchline, has become a leader on the world stage. Marco Rubio, we salute you. You're the ultimate Florida man.
I thought that was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. The ultimate Florida man. I think Ron DeSantis might have something to say about that. He's doing some crazy stuff, which I'll tell you guys about tomorrow. Really crazy stuff down here. In fact, I don't think Nicolas Maduro is going to see air anytime soon, because if for some reason he does not get convicted in New York, if some reason they find a way to get him off the charges in New York, Ron DeSantis, I'll show you tomorrow, Ron DeSantis is straight up going to charge him down here in South Florida. So I'm not worried about Maduro because he ain't going anywhere. All right, let me do super chats, and then I'll let you guys go for the night, and I'll get some dinner here. Here we go here. Good, it's straight. Pekowski, what about them aliens? Are they MAGA? You're kidding. The one with the spaceship. Yeah, I knew that's what you're talking about. A solution on hand should be the Marines. Yep. I think we may see them soon. Big Cat, wishing everyone a great start to a new year. To you as well. Canine Capone, a sign displayed by a group called the Minnesota Satanists in the state capitol, thanked Governor Tim Walz, quote, for standing in the way of spreading Satanism, for not standing in the way of spreading Satanism inside the state capitol building. They're sick people. Estelle, what happened leading up to her pulling sideways in front of those vehicles? I didn't get to see all of it, so I'm just curious, what was the leading events before all this took place? It looked as though she was laying in wait and understood the route that ICE vehicles might take, and then she decided she was going to pull out in front of the ICE vehicles to try and stop them. Bad move, and she didn't deserve to lose her life, but you play stupid games. Mary Kellums, Barry, you got me motivated to restart my business, and I thank you for that. I've had to watch a lot of your replays lately. Well, congratulations to you. It's never too late to start something. Never. My first video about Trump was March of 2024, and I was 63. And thank you, Michael Morse. Now, I also have a couple other super chats from Rumble. SP told me to take a look at. Let's see, what do we got here on Rumble? Wow! Let me see if I can show. Oh yeah, it'll fit here on the screen. I have a super chat from Jitteroot, the extreme anti-capital leftist, i.e. Antifa. Learn about them from Carolyn Boyshenko. Thank you. Wow, Jitteroot. Thank you very much. And then another one from Turn Back Trash. I guess that's the day for that. Turn Back Trash. I will take that any day of the week. So thank you guys for tuning in both. Well, I won't know what we're doing tomorrow until I see what President Trump's schedule is. And I'll post it, obviously. But thank you for tuning into both shows. Sorry that Alpha couldn't make it tonight, but he's my boy. He'll be back. We'll figure it out once we get past all this craziness. So I'm just check here. Nope, we're still good. Talk to you guys tomorrow.